Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, December 31st, 2019 edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, and this is the final podcast of 2019 and the final podcast of the decade. So crazy, crazy, crazy stuff, guys. Happy New Year's. Happy early New Year's. Some people are already celebrating it, so happy New Year's to them. But for us, we still have, about 14 hours to go. But I'm sure it's going to be a really nice day for everyone. Tomorrow's a holiday, of course. It's going to be good. I will be doing a short podcast tomorrow, nothing crazy. It's a holiday. But today it's going to be a pretty packed show because there's a card tonight, PFL 2019 Championship. So that's going to take place tonight, 6 title fights. And RIZIN took place this morning in Japan. I said I was going to preview it. I made a mistake there. The card actually already took place because Japan's time ahead of us. So that card already took place. I did not stay up and watch this card. I wanted to, but I haven't been feeling that well the last few days, and there was no way I was going to make it till I think it ended about 9 a.m. Eastern time. So it was a long card, about a 10-hour long card. They have the intermission in there. Kudos to anyone who did stay up. I just followed my boy Garbaka Hitman on Twitter, and I pretty much caught up on the card like that. Did not watch the card, so I know I missed out because apparently it was an amazing card. I'm just looking at the results right now. It looks like it was a crazy, crazy card, and I will be talking about it and the results and the significance of the fights. But I didn't watch the card myself. I do plan on going back and watching at least the highlights of these fights. I did see some of them on Twitter, but yeah, some crazy results for sure. But yeah, PFL is going to. I'm going to start with PFL, and then I'll go to RIZIN. So PFL takes place tonight, the last event of the decade, PFL 2019 Championship, and a really good card. You guys know I like PFL. I like their format. I like that we see some different fighters, and I like the fact that MMA fighters are able to compete and win $1 million. Like, it's very hard to make money in this sport, so at least we do have this option with PFL for these guys to go there, fight, and try to win some decent money because we know that it's hard to make that kind of money in the UFC or Bellator. Even if you're a really good fighter, it's going to take a couple years at least to make that kind of money. So let's start. I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. And the first fight's actually a non-title fight, the only non-title fight on the card, but definitely a fight that's interesting. We got a featherweight bout here between Brendan Loughnane and David Valent. This is pretty much a showcase fight for Loughnane, 18-3 record. We know him from The Ultimate Fighter. We know him from the UFC. Fought one time in the UFC back in 2012, lost to Mike Wilkinson, and really worked his way back up over the years. Actually beat Wilkinson in a rematch at ACB a couple of years ago. And the last 4 fights he's actually won. He's won 8 of his last 9 overall. And he's coming off a nice win over Matt Waggy in his PFL debut. We all remember him from his win over Bill Algee on the Contender Series, which was a great fight, one of the better fights of this season's Contender Series. And Dana White did not sign him to the UFC despite fans and media wanting him to be signed. And since then, he signed with PFL, and he'll be in next year's tournament. But for now, of course, he has to take on David Valent here. And it's not like a shoe-in he's going to win this fight. Valent is not a terrible fighter by any means. He does have some, okay wins in his career, a lot of finishes, but he is coming off 2 straight losses to Bruno Tavares and Kerry Two Banks, the former UFC fighter. And the fact he is coming off a couple losses while Loughnane has all the momentum just makes me want to lean towards Loughnane even more. So Loughnane right now is a minus 550 favorite, Valent plus 400. You got to favor Loughnane. The odds are high. I do expect him to win this fight, though. I believe he'll probably win decision, although I could see a stoppage happening. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Loughnane's going to win this fight. I don't want to overthink it too much. He's a better fighter. PFL wants him to win this fight, and unless Valent pulls off an upset, which could happen because it's PFL and we see a lot of upsets, I don't expect that to happen, though. Next up, we have the light heavyweight championship between Jordan Johnson and Emiliano Sordi, and this is a really, really good fight and a close fight according to the betting odds. Jordan Johnson is a minus 135 favorite. Emiliano Sordi is plus 105. So a very interesting fight. Jordan Johnson, 12-1. He was in the UFC for a while. We remember from there. He had a nice run in the UFC. He went 4-0 and then got released. He didn't really have the greatest performance. He's only had 1 finish in the 4 fights. The UFC ended up cutting him. And we're not even cutting him, really. Just couldn't agree to a contract. He became a free agent, and they just decided he wasn't worth what he wanted to be paid. He's gone to PFL since then. He's just 2-1-1, but he did end up making it to the finals based on his last couple wins over Rashid Yasupov, and then he had the draw against Maxim Grishin. So he had a decent run. He did have the loss to Grishin, but he bounced back with the draw that advanced him to the finals. So I mean, he's had an okay run. I'm not as high as Jordan Johnson as I once was. I thought he would be a really good prospect and a good fighter, but he's turned into a decent fighter. I just don't think he's as good as a lot of us thought he'd be. Sordi, on the other hand, is kind of the opposite. He's 21-8 in his career, and he's a guy that really started off kind of slow, and he's kind of worked his way back up, which is nice to see. He had a couple fights. He had the Contender Series fight against Ryan Spann, lost. He fought in Bellator, lost. But since coming to PFL, he's looked great, 5-1, and he's actually on a 4-fight win streak. This season alone, he's beaten Vinny Magalhaes, Bazikit Atayev twice, and Sigi Pesaleli. So he's had a really nice run. All of his last 4 wins are by stoppage in PFL. Actually, almost all of his wins in his career are by stoppage. So this guy's a finisher. This is an interesting fight. I mean, Jordan Johnson is a grinder, and he's going to be looking to take down Sordi and just kind of hold him on the ground, I believe. But Sordi has knockout power, and Sordi has momentum coming in this fight. Interesting fight. I can't blame people who are betting on Johnson because I can see why they're going to pick him here. They think he's probably going to just outgrind Sordi, but for 5 rounds, I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. I think Sordi in 5 rounds could actually connect on Johnson and finish him. So my pick's going to be Emiliano Sordi to pick up the upset win here and win the light heavyweight tournament. I do believe he could actually get a finisher within the 5 rounds. So that'd be my pick. Plus 105 Sordi, I believe, will win the light heavyweight championship. Next up, we have a featherweight championship bout between Lance Palmer and Alex Gilpin. I got to keep pointing in mind that this one is actually the 3rd fight these guys have had this year alone. So Gilpin's taking the fight on somewhat short notice, filling in for Daniel Pineda, but of course he's fought a lot this year, so he's probably going to be in good shape. But still, they have fought already twice this year, and Palmer came up strong in both those fights. So Lance Palmer, 21-3 record. The guy's an excellent fighter. I mean, really is one of the best featherweights in the world. And right now he's coming off a 10-fight win streak. He won the last season's tournament, and there's no reason to think he won't win this one either. Gilpin is coming off the loss to Palmer, and this year alone in PFL, he's 2-2. He did beat Andre Harrison, which was a huge win in fighting against Sunsao, but the losses to Palmer hurt, obviously. He is a Contender Series veteran. Was another guy that won on the Contender Series, didn't get signed, but he's looked really good in PFL besides Palmer's fights. But, you know, the fact they fought twice this year alone makes me think, like, why would anything be different, especially with Lance Palmer, like, just being such a good fighter, such a dominant fighter. He honestly should be in the UFC, but he's making more money in PFL, so why would he go to the UFC? He's going to make $1 million again, probably. Lance Palmer's a minus 1,100 favorite. Gilpin's a plus 620 underdog. There's no reason to think Lance Palmer won't win this fight, but the odds are too crazy. I wouldn't play him at minus 1,100. There's no value there. If anything, you want to take a look at the props because there's the value there. Do you think Gilpin gets finished? That's the question. Because if you do, Palmer by stoppage is plus 190, and with 5 rounds to do it, there's a good chance he could. Playing it safe, Palmer by decision is minus 165. It's up to you guys which way you're going to go with that, because I don't think playing minus 1,100 is worth it, but one of these props probably is. Got some good value there. It's hard to say which one. I would rather go inside the distance, honestly, at plus money, plus 190, but it is risky because Palmer could end up just grinding this fight and going the full 5 rounds. I just think with 25 minutes to work, there's a good chance he could actually get a stoppage win. Next up, we have the lightweight championship between Nathan Schulte and Loic Radzhabov. Schulte is a defending champion as well, and Schulte is an excellent fighter, 19-3-1 in his career. He's looked really good as of late. He's on a 6-fight win streak, and overall, he has not lost his last 9 fights. An excellent fighter, and Loic Radzhabov is very underrated as well, 13-1-1, excuse me. And he has only just won 2-1-1 in PFL, but he has fought some pretty solid competition. He's looked okay and made to the finals, so good for him. The odds on this one I got to mention are Schulte minus 240 and Radzhabov plus 180. Last year, Schulte was a huge underdog against Rashid Magomedov, and I had him there, and he ended up winning. This year, he's a big favorite, and I think for good reason. I believe that Schulte will win this fight as well. He deserves to be favored after winning last year's tournament. He's looked excellent this year. He beat Akhmed Aliyev, Ramsey Nijem, Jesse Ronson, and Yin King Bao this year alone. Excellent wins there. And Radzhabov, he did beat Chris Wade and Yields Yaron, but he had the loss to Magomedov, which hurts, and then the draw against Magomedov. So, the win over Chris Wade definitely was nice, and it got him to the finals. So he's been okay, but Schulte's just, to me, more proven, and I believe he'll win this fight. Should be interesting, though. I wouldn't completely write Radzhabov off on this one. I do think he has a chance to win this fight, but I have to go with Schulte to win. I believe he probably does end up grinding up decision, and the odds on that are Schulte by decision plus 380. I think there's some value there possibly. There's also the prop on him winning inside distance minus 120. I mean, it's possible because Radzhabov might gas out here, but Schulte inside distance at plus 380, by decision at plus 380, there could be value there. That's a pretty crazy line for a guy that does often go to decision. Next up, we have the heavyweight finals between Jared Rosholt and Ali Asayev. this is not going to be one of the more fun fights in the card, in my opinion. Hopefully it ends quickly, because if it does, it could be really, really ugly to watch. And right now we have Ali Isaev minus 580 and Jared Rosal plus 415. Isaev 8-0, 36 years old though, so he's an older guy, but he's only been fighting for 3 years, and he's looked great, undefeated in Fight Nights Global, and then since coming to PFL 4-0, beat Denis Goltsov in the last second in his last fight, which was a really good win. Also beat Kelvin Tiller, Carla Surintafa, and Valdrin Estrefi, so he's looked pretty good. And then Rochal, 20-7 in his career, 33 years old, former UFC fighter. We remember from his days in the UFC, he beat some decent names like Stefan Struvenball Harris, but he's really struggled the last few years, I think, in PFL, and basically made to the finals kind of just because their heavyweight division is not very good. He lost to Denis Goltsov in his first fight this year, and then beats Toshi Ishii, Mo Deriz, and Kelvin Tiller in a short notice fight to advance to the finals. I'm not a huge believer in Jared Rosal. I did like him. I think it was the Deriz fight he was a big underdog in. I just like the matchup there, but this matchup I don't like. Asayev should be able to match the wrestling, and the striking I think would actually just be in his favor, because Rosal doesn't have a good chin. I think Asayev probably does end up finishing this fight. The prop on Asayev inside of distance is minus 235, so only half of like what the money line is. Not really good odds. And then him by decision is actually plus 335. I just don't see this fight going to 5 rounds. It's a heavyweight fight. So I like Asayev here. Minus 580 is obviously pretty high, but I do expect a lot of people to put him in a parlay. Next up, we have the welterweight finals between Ray Cooper 3 and David Michaud. I really like this fight as well. Nice fight here. I'm a big fan of Ray Cooper, and David Michaud's look really good. Ray Cooper right now is a minus 155 favorite. David Michaud plus 125. So one of the closer line fights in the card. Ray Cooper 19-7-1, only 26 years old. He had a rough start to this season when he did beat Zane Kamaka, but then he got knocked out by John Howard in brutal fashion. Had the draw against Sadhu C, and then beat Chris Curtis to advance to the finals. So this is a guy that went to the finals last year, kind of out of nowhere, beat Jake Shield twice, 2 huge upset wins there, and then ended up losing to Magomed Karamov in the finals. But with Magomed Karamov hurt this year, Cooper is advanced and doesn't have to fight him again. So I do think Cooper should be favored here, and he is. And then David Michaud, he's actually looked really good, 18-5 in his career. He's on a 3-fight win streak. Lost to Sadhu C, but since then beat Anderson, Fahey, John Howard, and Glaico Franco. He's looked pretty good. Former UFC fighter as well, former Bellator fighter. Has a lot of experience in the cage. He is a pretty tough dude, hard to finish, but I just think Ray Cooper's got too much power, man. I like Ray Cooper here, guys. I think he does finish the fight. Minus 155, I think, you have to kind of look for the closer line fights in this card, and I think Cooper, there's, I think, value on him to win this fight, because I do believe he's a better fighter, and with 5 rounds to finish the fight, I think he's going to do that. And then the main event of the evening is the women's lightweight title bout between Kayla Harrison and Larissa Pacheco. Kayla Harrison, 6-0, super prospect, 29 years old. She's right in her prime. 5 or 6 wins by stoppage. And Pacheco, she is 13-3, 25 years old, so really young. Former UFC fighter. She had a rough run in the UFC, by the way. Like, looking back, she fought Jessica Andrade and Jermaine Durandamy. I thought, honestly, she was going to do really well in the UFC, because she had that win over Irene Adana back in Jungle Fight 7 years ago now. Amazing performance there, but since then kind of struggled. She has at least bounced back a bit in PFL. She beat Sarah Kaufman in her last fight. I did like her in that one as an underdog. This fight, obviously, I don't like her in. They've already fought this year, and Harrison won decisions. It was her first decision in her career. Pacheco was able to tough it out and get to the 3 rounds, but this being a 5-round fight, I'm not sure if that's going to happen, guys. I like Harrison here. She should be able to finish the fight. The prop on Harrison by stoppage is minus 295. So again, it's hard to say there's value on that. And I want to say the money line is minus 1250 Harrison, Pacheco plus 680. So just to recap, my picks would be Kayla Harrison, Ray Cooper, Ali Asayev, Nathan Schulte, Lance Palmer, Emiliano Sordi as an underdog, and Brendan Laughlin. So I think most of the favorites are going to win on this card, but you probably will see an upset or two. I'm going to pick Sordi as one of the upsets, but honestly, it wouldn't shock me if one of these other big favorites went down. We've seen a lot of upsets in PFL over the last few years, and it could happen tonight, but as you can see from the odds makers and the betting public don't believe that's going to be the case. All right, time to talk about RIZIN. All right. Again, I didn't end up watching this card, but I'm going to go through the results here. So the first call fights were lightweight tournament semifinals, and Patricky Pitbull knocked out Luis Gustavo with a soccer kick. I did see this. Go on Twitter and find the GIF. It's pretty crazy. And then Toki Musayev defeats Johnny Case by knockout. Pitbull ended up fighting Musayev in the finals, and the winner of the lightweight tournament was Tokiv Musayev by decision defeats Pajigo Pitbull, so that's a big win for him. Pitbull's a very good fighter, obviously, but Musayev is an excellent prospect. That's a huge win for him. Some of the other results that are definitely worth noting here: Patrick Mix defeats Yuki Montoya. Patrick Mix, excellent fighter in Bellator. Jake Ewan surprises with a knockout win over Satoshi Ishii. That's a big one for him. Yuri Pajatska knocked out Stevie Dalloway. I think we all saw that coming. Reina Kabata defeats Lindsey Van Zant. That was a towel thrown by the corner. Wow, okay, I gotta look at that. One of the upsets on this card, Sohee Ham defeats Ayaka Hamasaki. They have fought twice before. Hamasaki won both fights, but they were 10 years ago. So, hopefully you guys picked up on that. And Hamasaki, or Yam, is now the super atomweight champion of RIZIN. Tenshin Nasukawa defeats Rui Abata in a kickboxing bout. And the main event eating Mano Cape gets revenge against Kai Asukara with a second-round knockout to win the RIZIN Bantamweight Championship. So that's a huge win by Cape. Very good fighter out of Portugal. He's an excellent fighter. And Asukara is very good as well. So these guys are going to fight again. There's no doubt about it. There are two excellent young fighters in the bantamweight division. And George Horiguchi being hurt, that kind of sucks. But that division overall is very good. And it's a shame that the UFC doesn't have these guys, because I think they could be big stars. But, RIZIN promotes them. They love them. And these guys are really good. And Cade coming off a nice win over Takeya Mitsugaki before this. So this guy is really on fire right now. I mean, that's a big win for him, and he's looked really good. So from what I heard, it was a great card. I wasn't able to watch. If you guys did, please let me know how it was. But I've heard it was great. So that's good to hear. And just a couple fight announcements before I get out of here, guys. So UFC London, my boy Chisanga Malata, who I went to Brazil with earlier this year, he broke a couple fights for UFC London, including a fight between Lerone Murphy and what's his name? Gabriel Benitez. So Lerone Murphy, 8-0-1. He's an English fighter coming off a draw against Sabar Tuhogov, which I think, considering the odds, was actually a good result for him. And this guy is a pretty good fighter. Takes on Benitez here, and Benitez 21-7, so a lot of experience. He is coming off a knockout loss to Diakiese. He has had some good wins in the UFC, like Jason Knight, Humberto Bandeira, Stan Facility. So he got some decent wins. It's obviously a step up for Murphy in some ways, because Benitez is a very underrated fighter, but you got to go with Lerone Murphy in this fight, guys. I just think he's the better fighter. And the other fight that was added to this card is a fun lightweight bout between Marc Diakiese and Stevie Ray. Marc Diakiese is 14-3 in his career, and the UFC he's just 4-3 overall. But he did snap a 3-fight losing streak in his last two fights with wins over Joseph Duffy and Landon Vanana. So he looked pretty good, and nice to see him get back in the winning track, because this guy is a fun fighter to watch. And Stevie Ray, he's another guy who's been inconsistent during his career. He is 23-9, which is nice, but in the UFC, he started off with a 5-1 record, and since then he's just 2-3. He is coming off a win over Michael Johnson, though. A very controversial decision there. Majority decision. A lot of people thought he lost the fight. I did, but he still got the nod, so good for him. I got to go with Diakiese in this fight, though. It just looked a lot better lately than Stevie Ray, and I just kind of lost my belief in Stevie Ray, so that would be my pick in that one. As far as news and stuff goes, Dana White did an interview with ESPN. He talked about a few different things, including Nick Diaz. He says that the matchmakers are speaking to Nick Diaz about a return. He also said the UFC is working on Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero. It's rumored for UFC 248. He says Conor McGregor wants the BMF title, and he believes Weili Zhang will become one of the biggest stars in the UFC. So definitely it was an interesting interview with Dana talking about a lot of different things. So definitely go and check that out if you want to see what Dana was saying. And that's about it. So last podcast of the decade, guys. Appreciate you tuning in as always. And I'll be back tomorrow for the New Year's edition of the podcast. You guys can check me on Twitter at MMAdammartin. And I'm always available there if you want to talk about MMA. MMAOddsbreaker.com is my home, the home of the podcast. You can also check me out at bjpenn.com and MMARings.net. All right, guys, that's it for 2019. The podcast is over. Crazy stuff. Well, I'll be back tomorrow for a New Year's edition. You can even see the snow going out in the backyard there. So, guys, have a great day. Enjoy your New Year's. Stay safe. If you're drinking, please don't drive. Just stay safe, guys, and we'll make it to tomorrow. And hopefully PFL tonight is going to be a good card. Looks good on paper. I think it's going to be a pretty good card, so hopefully it's pretty sweet. Guys, have a wonderful New Year's. Thank you once again for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a great day. Have a good one, guys. Bye.